I'm going to show you 10 web design tricks that you can use with MidJourney. First is negative prompting. Normally, prompts in MidJourney are quite simple, like this one here for web design with automotive services. The problem is, MidJourney doesn't always produce the result we expect. In this case, it's quite literally not even a website, it's just a photo of a car on a laptop. This is where negative prompting comes into play. I can still use the same prompt. At the end of the prompt, I'll add in --no with the word laptop. This is the negative prompt, and what it will do is ensure that the AI art generation avoids anything that looks like a laptop based on that keyword. This definitely did the job because I don't see any laptops anymore, but this still doesn't look like a website. So I'm going to add in a few more negative prompts to try to ensure that a website design actually gets generated rather than just images of cars. I'll add in the negative prompt for laptop once again, but I'll also add in shading and realism and maybe something like photo as well. So hopefully it avoids anything that kind of represents these words and it'll be more focused on generating a web design. This negative prompting in MidJourney definitely works because here I have 4 good looking websites which I can actually use as inspiration or to replicate and create a design. And this leads me to the second MidJourney trick, which is using multi-prompting. It's a way of breaking up different sentences. Let me give you an example. Here is a prompt for a web design for an online cupcake store. It's a website with good UI and UX. Here are some of the examples. They're definitely cupcakes, but what if I wanted a cake inside of a cup? This is where I would be using multi-prompting, and this is adding double colons to indicate to MidJourney that they should treat each word separately rather than together. So in this case, I can add those to the word cup, and now cup and cake store are treated separately. The results speak for themselves. Now, a few of the designs definitely look like they're more focused on having cups with little desserts and cakes inside of them. Quick pause. I've got a special announcement. I've released my very first book. It's called Enhance UI, and it's everything you'll ever need to know about graphics design that they just don't teach you when you're learning how to make websites. I've listed it on Gumroad for $49, and it's over 400 pages. As a PDF, you can download in a dark or light version, along with some video tutorials, exercises, and much more. It's the perfect thing if you want to learn color theory, topography, good UI, UX, or just want to support the channel. You can find it in the description below. An extension of multi-prompting is weights, and this is our next MidJourney trick for creating better web designs. Weights simply allow you to put different priority on different words, as well as break them up. Let me show you an example. Here I've got a prompt for a web design about hot dogs with UI, UX, etc. This prompt creates some nice visuals with very vibrant photos of hot dogs. But unfortunately, this wasn't maybe what I wanted for the prompt. I wanted a dog that looks hot. So instead, I could use multi-prompting to add in the columns that essentially break up this prompt into 2 parts, with hot being treated separately from dogs, and this is what we just learned earlier. And here we can see that we're definitely getting some dogs with some flames in the background, which means that we're kind of getting a representation of dogs that are hot, which is perfect. But what if I wanted a prompt that has more priority on the word hot rather than dog itself? This is where I can use the weight 2 after the 2 columns to put that priority into place, and this is weighting. Now we'll have more focus on the word hot rather than the word dog, and they're also kept separate. And the results here showcase that. You can see that we have the website with a dog, but they're much warmer pictures with more focus on heat rather than the dog itself. And this can be continued. We don't just have to stop at the number 2. We can increase the weight as far as we want, to 4, 10, 100. The more weight that is placed on a word, the more priority it'll have in the overall AI art design. And here you can see that. You can see how much emphasis is placed on heat in comparison to everything else. And you can use weights just like this to emphasize things like lava or flames or heat or even color. This next MidJourney trick is a bit of a contradiction. It's to showcase the website inside of a product, such as a MacBook or iPad or another device. Traditionally, we create prompts like this: a website design for a hotel website. No shading or realism or details. Here are the web designs. These are pretty straight to the point, but they're going for a certain aesthetic which definitely look like a hotel and something more, I suppose, old school and inviting. Now, if I wanted to turn these into product showcases, I would need to change the prompt. This is where I would have to add in keywords, such as maybe MacBook, M1, or something like mockup, And what ends up happening is you get different types of designs. Even the aesthetic is a little bit different, and sometimes that can be a good thing to even give you some inspiration for a different type of design altogether. These look more new age and more interesting in terms of hotel designs that I would personally use if I was creating a website. This next new feature is called Zoom Out, and I found it quite useful to make my web designs look a little bit better, especially when I wanted to see more of them. This is a new feature, so you will need to be running MidJourney 5.2. So head to Settings, select MJ version 5.2, and then make sure that Remix is also enabled. Then generate some images and select to upscale one. This will give you a new screen where you can zoom out by 2x, 1x, or even with a custom zoom. I'm going to use this example just over here. It's a web design for an accounting and tax services company, yet it doesn't really look like it. It looks more like a travel agency. In any case, this one here looks visually appealing, but I wanted to see more of it. So what I did was select to zoom out by 1.5x. These were the 4 variations I got. And what's interesting is that each one kind of took a different approach to zooming out. I think this is great for inspiration and gives you different ideas of how the website could be laid out. The next tip is to do a custom zoom with a remix. This is a new feature now in 5.1, which allows you to add more prompts while zooming out of an existing image. I'm going to add in M1 MacBook laptop. And here are the results. I've got an image that has been generated, and this time the website itself is inside of a laptop and it could be used as a product showcase or something like that. The website design is also different, with a new user interface for the header, and it could give you some design inspiration too. The next tip is prompt engineering. This is just having clear prompts, like a web design for it can be anything really. In this case, a tourist website. This is clear and concise, and you'll find that with newer versions of MidJourney, the better the prompts, the better the results. Since MidJourney version 5.2, we can still create great looking AI art from smaller prompts, but on top of that, it's better capable of understanding natural language. Of course, this can be refined. I could pass in something like a modern web design for a tourism website. This produces some really amazing results, and really it's up to you on what type of keywords you want to add, whether it's modern or minimalistic or any others. It can also be taken one step further by adding further explanation in paragraphs, such as explaining exactly how you want the page to look. I'm still creating a website for tourism, but this time I'm passing in that the layout is simple and straightforward, with lots of ample white space and clear headings to facilitate easy navigation. In most cases, it'll actually do a good job at generating that. In this case, the headers and the navigation are quite simple, and more focus is done on the picture and below the fold. Be aware that the results though can be also unpredictable. In another example, I tried to create a similar prompt here for a web design for a modern tourist website, but in this case, I actually passed in the homepage would be a full screen hero image with a call to action button. And MidJourney didn't really listen to how I wanted that user interface. There's no call to action button here at all, though there is a few examples of full screen images. This next tip is one of my favorites. It's using aspect ratio. As the name suggests, you can set the aspect ratio now in MidJourney. In the past, you had custom ones of a 1:1 or 4:3, but now you can pretty much use anything. So to set an aspect ratio, we're just going to put in a prompt here, like for a website, a shoe company, and I'm going to set the aspect ratio to 4:3. This is more or less the default that comes with MidJourney. I've done this by passing --AR 4:3. And here are the website designs that were produced. I'm going to copy this prompt and this time use a different aspect ratio. One of the common ones that we view pages in is 16:9. I'm going to pass in --aspect because that works the same as --AR. These produce more horizontal designs. There's more width to them, but the designs themselves as web designs don't look that great. Some of them don't even look like websites. And here's a trick I found, and it's the fact that the aspect ratio being more vertical rather than horizontal works a lot better. Instead, I'm going to use the aspect ratio 9:16. This produces better looking websites for some reason. I find that they look more like portfolio presentations or things you would see on Figma or even on websites like Dribbble. The next tip is to do it backwards. We'd start with a website. We could do so on Editor X, selecting out a template and then picking out a design that more or less you can adapt into a website. I like this one here at the very top, where you can work remotely. This comes with a basic video of a person sort of in a pool working on a laptop, which I don't think is very natural, and I wanted to add my own style and aesthetic to it. I'm gonna delete the background image, and instead I'm going to use my own image here, made from MidJourney. I played around with lots of design prompts to try and get a nice background image as the heroes section. This prompt here generated the San Francisco Bridge in a really cool artistic style. I used version 2 here, and then I selected to zoom it out so that I could get even more coverage. I was hoping that some of the bushes at the bottom here would actually cover the frame, and they did, so you can see the tree branches sort of blended into black at the bottom. And this could be perfect to transition one website section into another. Back on Editor X, I jumped in here to upload this image to use as the background. And this ended up looking quite good. Though I do need to update some of the content now because of the dark background. I'll need white text instead, but I can resize this and adapt this to the design. As I mentioned earlier, I can create the next section to be black, and this would transition perfectly from the hero image. The only other thing I need to do is make sure that the scaling of this website has a focal point, which is at the bottom of the image, so that that forest completely blends into the background of that second section. Finally, some minor changes to buttons and text and colors, and removing other components I don't need, and this website could be adapted for pretty much anything. The second last tip is to jump onto the MidJourney website. Here, you can log in and have a look at your own posts as well as community posts. And this is absolutely great because if you want inspiration, you can simply type in the keyword you're looking for and have a look at what other people have generated with their own prompts. This gives you a vast number of examples, and at any point you can select any one of them and see exactly what kind of prompt made them and generated them. You can copy this prompt and paste it into your own Discord, or you can jump back onto the MidJourney website and continue browsing for ideas. I stumbled across this Parkinson one, which is the best text I've ever seen MidJourney produce, but I really like this one for this fruit and fitness, or I suppose a diet website, so I decided to copy this entire prompt and test it out myself in Discord. And I was shocked. It didn't really look like the original, and I think this is because it might be using an earlier version of MidJourney. Still, this design is kind of usable, and I can pull out different elements for inspiration from it. And this brings me to my last tip. There should be a clue based on the last example, which is using different versions of MidJourney to design inspiration and web designs. The very first version of MidJourney I'd start on is version 4. That's when I started creating videos on MidJourney, and when I think the web designs actually looked interesting and unique. I'm still actually using it often to get design inspiration when I'm trying to come up with different mockups. You can then try out version 5, and I think this has its own training data, which might not have been as much done on web designs as previous versions, and 5.1, which wasn't that great either, at least from what I found. Then version 5.2 seems to have used more web designs in its training data once more, because I found that this version recently has been doing quite well.